It is time for our candidates to take their place. I am in my place. I hope you guys will sit and enjoy. My name is Jean O'Neill. I will be the moderator for this afternoon. First, I want to say thanks to all the candidates who are here, who are going to speak. We, Indivisible, appreciates the Grange very much for use of the space. We also very much appreciate Collin Black for setting up all the electronics and including taping this. This is going to be put up on YouTube so others can view it. Thanks to all the Indivisibles for their help in setting up and in managing things. So if everybody will silence your phone, I expect to see arms going into pockets at this point. Well, some. Our three candidates are Paul Wetzel, Patrick Sumner, Dick Kisloski. They will make introductory remarks and closing remarks of 2 minutes each. The order of the first and last speaking was drawn by straws, and then we will rotate among their positions on the table. So without any further ado.
Can I just add that you guys, this is a 30-second warning, and this is the stop. Thank you.
We don't have a bell today, we have cards. Our first introductory remarks are from Dick Kisloski.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Jean said, I'm Dick Kisloski, and I'm running to be your next member of the Select Board. I've lived in Haydenville for 51 years at 12 Cole Road in a house my wife and I literally designed and essentially built ourselves, except for a few licensed contractors. We have 2 children, a boy and a girl, both of whom went to the Williamsburg schools and both graduated from Hampshire Regional. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering and a Master of Science Engineering in Structural Design and Engineering. Currently, I'm retired, but previously I worked for the Navy as a civilian in planning, repair, alterations of submarines. After several years, I changed jobs and I became employed by a large local general contractor and stayed with them for 35 years. I was involved in engineering, project management, and site supervision projects ranging in value from $1 million to $100 million, both in Western Massachusetts and in the Boston area. Over time, I became a minority owner of this $250 million company, being responsible for numerous projects, both with public as well as private owners. I was also a trustee of their $40 million pension fund. Being retired, I will be available anytime to address any issues that may arise, dealing with budgets, quality assurance, staffing issues, safety, and completing projects on time within budget were my main focus. While being employed in the construction industry, I will strive to achieve the same for Williamsburg as I have for your selectmen.
Our second speaker is Patrick Sumner.
I was actually third.
I'm sorry?
Third for opening remarks, second.
That's the opening remarks.
Oh, no problem with that. So, name's Patrick Sumner. I've lived here for, 6.5, going on 7 years. Obviously running for selectman. I have, right now I'm working as a tax preparer. Previously I was working as a campaign manager in the South, small campaigns, third parties, and the major 2. Started getting active in the politics with the Mountain Street project and just sort of went from there. Should also probably say is thank you for the microphone. My voice is not very loud, and I wasn't looking forward to having to resort to interpretive dance. I'm running because we need to start planning for the future. We need to get a little more involvement of the citizenry, listen to the committees a little more, and frankly work together as a cohesive government. The Mountain Street project was sort of sprung on the citizens as a whole. It was unexpected. The DOT came to us with a completed project which wasn't what we were expecting, or frankly what the street wanted and what the town needed. And it's come out with the Main Street project that I'm not sure we've learned anything yet. It's just, we could use a change. Thank you very much.
Paul?
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Wetzel. My wife, Carolyn, and I have 2 kids who grew up here. Like many parents, I coached soccer until my kids could play better than I could. I assisted with Girl Scout outings. I helped build theater sets and judge science fair projects. They went to the elementary school next door and eventually graduated from Hampshire Regional. Currently, I manage the property and buildings at the McLeish Field Station for Smith College. Located in West Whately, McLeish is a 250-acre facility where I teach classes, organize programs, and make things run smoothly. We have the good fortune to live in a nice town. I like the vibrant town centers of Williamsburg and Haydenville, the forested hills interlaced with farms and streams, and the interesting people that I meet. I'm sure that all of you share my desire to keep our towns a comfortable place to live, a place that remains a strong and welcoming community that is resilient to future changes. To me, being a member of the Select Board requires attention to detail combined with keeping an eye on the big picture. It's also about seeing new opportunities when they arise, such as encouraging a new business or supporting community initiatives and working out practical solutions to solve problems. I've served on a wide variety of local committees and boards, but most notably for 15 years on the Finance Committee. I've been chair for the last 9 years. More than any other committee, Finance introduced me to town employees, gave me an understanding of town government, and allowed me to meet many people in the community. I've worked with the schools, folks in the town office, the library, town department supervisors, and a whole host of various citizen committees. It's these experiences that spurred me to run for Select Board, take my knowledge and experiences to a new level, and put them to work for the town.
Thank you, gentlemen. Our first question, and the way this will work is that they will rotate in answers or opportunity for answer, and if anyone has any questions they want to add to the selection, please fill out a card, and then some of our Indivisible members will bring the card forward to me, and I will try and work it in logically if possible. So property taxes are on everyone's mind. Do you think there is a way that they can be safely reduced and not reduce valuable town services? And the first answer will come from Dick.
Could you repeat that, please?
Yes, property taxes are on everyone's mind. Do you think there is a way that they can be safely reduced and not lose valuable town services?
Well, taxes are always a problem, I guess. So, the best thing to do is try to manage the budget, manage how the procurements are handled in town, so that every dollar you spend is accounted for and it's always going into the right place. Sometimes that doesn't happen, and sometimes some equipment gets bought that really didn't need to get bought, or is maybe more than is required. I've always felt that if you're going to supply a service, you need to supply that service that actually is needed and to the fullest extent, but not any more than that. So if you want to reduce taxes and control them, make sure you pay attention to the little stuff.
Patrick?
All right. No, Dick makes a good point. There is an issue with sufficient versus desire. The town has been spending money to make things superb, where sufficient is perfectly fine. The one that comes to mind is I remember there was a bit of an argument over some of the purchases for the fire department in particular. The equipment they have is going to be great. I'm not totally sure we needed it. And that's kind of, those large ticket items continually crop up. And we're also finding that with some of the money we're getting for grants, the DOT projects again. They're beautiful, they're just enormous and very, very expensive. And spreading the money around a little bit could defray some of our costs. We're still reaching out for grants. The city is active for that and doing well. As far as the rest of it, there's going to be new assessments. The tax rates have been lowered slightly to deal with the increase in housing prices, so we're going to probably try to keep this level as possible. I know I will. That could mean that there's some cost cutting in places, but that's it. Oh, thank you.
Paul?
Oh, man, okay. This is a big topic. I think one of the most important things about when thinking about taxes is thinking that about that these are services. So if you think that taxes need to be cut, then you have to think about what services are you willing to give up, or what services can we make more efficient. And so it's not an easy proposition, and there's a good point made. You know, buy what you need, not what you desire necessarily, but there's also a lot of different needs. And so I would just say that it's just important to be thoughtful about taxes and developing a budget, and keep your eye on what the services are that you want and how you can deliver them most efficiently.
Thank you. The second one related to economics, and Paul will go first on this one. How should the extension of sewer and water lines be decided upon? These have an impact on property values.
Okay.
I wish we'd have built in about a half a minute. These guys had no idea what questions were going to come up.
No, that's all right.
So there they go.
Well, I think that I don't know a lot about this, so I think that what I would say is I would first consult with the Sewer and Water Commission, and I would make sure that one, we could handle the facilities in Northampton could handle whatever was being proposed, and then I would also just want to know why this would be beneficial to the town and maybe to the environment. So I'm kind of deferring to looking at figuring out what's up and what's driving that and what we can do and what will be best for the town.
Second for that question is Dick.
I kind of agree with what Paul said on most of the cases. I mean, you need to really find out what is required and whether you really need to expand the services and make sure that where you're sending all your water and your sewer, that it can be handled at the other end economically. I think now probably the town, I don't really see a huge expansion in sewer, at least in the area where I live and stuff, or up on Mountain Street and up in the hills. So, I mean, it's probably going to be just more of a question of managing what we have now economically. Other than that, you just have to pay attention to the details and pay attention to what's going on with the construction process.
Patrick?
Okay. Well, sewer expansion is going to be following any type of other development project, which there is a place for it. It's going to enable the town to have denser development in specific areas. Town center of Williamsburg, town center of Haydenville being the big ones. But as far as, I don't really think that the Board of Selectmen is going to be driving any expansion for the sewer or water projects beyond that which is already attached to things like zoning and permitting for those kinds of constructions. It's something you get to when you get to it. Right now, we have water and sewer sufficient for the buildings that want it. If you had a group of people that did want to have an expansion off of the edge or a branch of it, it's doing it for one house alone is not efficient. Doing it for a number of houses is much more manageable. So that's the kind of thing that we would expect individuals to approach the board with that desire. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question has to do with the safety complex. At one point, ex-principal Fred Venne, I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation, said, Ben, thank you. There might be a room in the old school devoted to Bergie High history. Any comments on if that can be accommodated or is being accommodated?
I'm not sure.
And the first, that one goes to Patrick.
I'm not sure I actually understood the question.
Me neither.
Apparently, at one point, when the school was getting ready to be taken down, there was a comment that there could be a room somewhere devoted to Bergie High history to commemorate the building, I presume, and the people that went there.
Okay.
So I guess it would be, what would be your thinking if you were going to guide, for instance, the people planning the next steps, such as the space around the new building? Is there anything that could be done to incorporate Bergie High history?
imagine there'd be plenty of ways you can introduce architectural elements as what you might call a homage. I'd love to see, some public space surrounding, near the safety complex, just to the south of it, along the route. The safety complex itself is sort of a dedicated space. It really doesn't lend itself to things like public infrastructure, museums, rooms, meeting rooms, things like that. They don't play well together because of some of the requirements of the building. I'd love to be able to see some of the older buildings here maintained for that purpose, but I'm not really sure how involved it is with the safety complex development. Moving forward from that, I think the community has made itself known and will continue to about, the rationality and if we want to, how we want to move forward based on what we've done with the safety complex. So it's going to affect opinions, but I'm not really sure the two play well together as ideas.
Paul?
Well, I think that if you wanted to commemorate the school, there might be a way to do that in a certain way in the park area that's kind of right at the intersection. I'm not sure exactly what the person has in mind, but that would be one thing that you could think of. You could think of, there might be a plaque or a statue or something. It's not going to maybe be enough space to let your entire, have pictures of the entire class or something like that. But you could certainly describe the history and tell people who've come after you what was there.
Dick?
Not being totally familiar with the layout inside the building, I'd say probably the only thing you could do inside would be either commemorative plaques or some wall hangings of some sort in certain common areas. Probably everything else that you want to do would involve maybe naming the building and providing space outside in the landscape portion of something. I mean, now you move the concrete monument into the area and stuff. I mean, I think that's a good start, and you probably could do other such things to maybe set aside an area to commemorate Helen E. James and what the school was like at that point in time. But to do something like that would have to probably be done on the outside. I mean, just because of the function of the building and stuff, it'd be very difficult to do that outside of something in the common area.
Let's move to a related topic. This has to do with how you, as a member of the select board, would handle an issue. There's been some squabble over the lighting on a new building. How would you, assuming that conflict rose and couldn't be settled other ways, how would you, as a select board member, address this?
Squabble on the lighting?
Yes.
Outside.
And number one is, this one is Dick first.
Well, if you got an issue with the lighting in the building, the first thing you got to do is you got to deal with the architect and the engineer who designed the whole building. That's where I would start with first. I mean, and see what their solution is. They got paid a lump sum to handle this job, so they should handle that. That should be theirs. It might have to be a change or a change order or something involved in that case. But and I don't know if the issue is a common issue now or an issue that just an actual issue that's come up. If it is, that'd probably be the way to handle it, is to go through the architect and the engineer who designed it, find out what it is, and try and ascertain if that's a good change with maybe the departments, if that's what they want, and also try and get some good cost estimates so you can kind of control the amount of expense in this and make sure that your budget can handle that.
Patrick?
Can you give me the question again?
We hear things about the lighting. People are fussing about the lighting at the new public safety complex. As a member of the select board, if that issue came to you, how would you handle it or advise?
Well, first off, I'd really appreciate it that someone actually came to me with a problem. Actually, that's part of what I meant when I said public participation. People just sort of grin and bear things that frankly they shouldn't. Take advantage of with the government you have. The lighting is probably one of the best things you can have a problem with because it's one of the easiest things to change. You can change things like the color, you can change the opacity of the globe, you can change the brightness. have to ascertain what the problem actually is. If it's shining through someone's, bedroom window like the second sun, well, that can be addressed. It's not just an architectural thing, it's a practical thing. Most people aren't going to see the building at the same time as they see the lights. It's not going to be lit up like Las Vegas. So it's something that can easily be addressed and should. If it turns out that it's actually to spec, well, that's fine, you address it and you change it. If not, well, you address it with the architect and make them pay for it. But the process is, it has to change if there are enough complaints. The town gets to lead on that one.
All right, Paul?
I think I would just, I would start with, what's the lighting for? Why is it there? Why do you need it? And then I would be very conscious of, is it disturbing other people in town, whether that's drivers or the people that live across the street or whatever. So, it's going to involve talking to the various stakeholders involved and seeing what exactly is the problem and what can we do about it. So.
The next question is related, it's a follow-on in a way. Can each of you share your thoughts on how to more engage the residents, get them to participate in their government, increase attendance at meetings, membership on current boards and committees, basically increase participation from the citizens? And that we'll start with Paul.
Well, that's kind of an interesting question because it's been my observation over the years that Williamsburg has a lot of people volunteer for Williamsburg. They do a lot of things for Williamsburg and as volunteers. And so on the one hand, I feel like there's an extraordinary amount of participation in the town. But maybe the person's thinking about political. I will be the first person to say that meetings can be a little bit dull. And so I think that people just have to feel like their voice is heard and that what they're interested in is going to be, what's going on is going to be important. And that's what I would say about that. Yeah.
Dick?
Well, a lot of people, as Paul said, volunteer in this town, and a lot of people are on committees. And what I've found in the years I've been here, and especially since I've been on the finance committee the last 8 or 9 years, most of the town seems to be run by a small majority of the people. And I understand everybody is busy, especially if you're younger, you got a family, you got a million things you want to do. I think what you got to do is you got to make sure if there's an important issue coming up that you get it out to the town. You have Brenda put a phone call out and alert people that there's a meeting and it's important to come to this meeting. Get a flyer out, put posts on the burgie.org just so you can get people involved. We need to get more people on the different committees. The same people should not be on the same committee year after year after year. I mean, it's great that people are willing to donate all this time and sacrifice this time, but we need to have more people involved with this.
Patrick?
There's an old joke in politics that politicians only exist because the electorate's lazy. Well, it's a joke for a reason. First, it's not funny, it's a political joke. But it's the people are busy. You have to make participation easy, and you have to make yourself available. And you have to be able to take complaints in 2 sentences. My trash can keeps getting knocked over. Well, that gives you what to fix and who to talk to. That's enough. That's mostly what you're going to get for participation from an electorate, from a town as a whole, and that's all you need. If they're willing to volunteer time for the committees to look over the reports, to review things, to check purchases, that's great. But that's also not participation. It's getting people to realize they have a stake in a community, even if they don't want to participate. And to the extent that they want to participate, well, it doesn't change anything. It just means they're being part of the town. Have respect for everybody on that one. Personally, I love hearing from people, and I don't, well, okay. Thank you much.
You can go right on with this one, Patrick. Do you consider Williamsburg to be well-run, say, for the past 10 years?
Ooh, that's a That's a loaded question. Well, first one in the bear trap. I
We're
would
trying
say-
to make it entertaining.
You succeeded. It is not particularly well run, which is normal. It's completely average. Most towns aren't well run. They're run sufficiently. Nothing falls over too much. You know, we've had a few things fall over, but not as many as a lot of places. We can do better, is how I'd answer that. And some of it's a little different. Some of it's just doing more of what we've already done. But we can definitely do better.
Paul?
I actually think the town's pretty well run. I think that when I look at the past 10 years, we've consolidated schools. We've built or remodeled, however you want to look at it, a new school. We actually have a safety complex standing. We've made a decision about the school, the old Helen James School. That's a lot for a town to take on, and it's a lot for people to be involved. You can agree or disagree whether those projects were good or not, but I think we've gotten some grants. I think that there's a lot to be said for the way Williamsburg is run. It doesn't mean there isn't improvements. It's just, I think it's been okay. Glass is half full on that question. Yeah.
Dick?
Williamsburg run. Well, I guess there's always room for improvement. I know when I was working, I mean, there was mistakes made, and you always look back at those and think, geez, I could have done that better. And I think probably the same is true here. There's stuff we could do quicker, stuff we could do faster. We could make more decisions rather than sometimes passing it on and hope the town at the town meeting solves some of these problems. I mean, some of them could be solved without going to town meeting. When the business I was in, you didn't have a lot of time to make a lot of decisions. You didn't take months. I mean, a lot of times you could make a decision that was worth $1 million that was made in a day, with a consortium of other people, not necessarily all by yourself, but trying to get the feedback so you can make a proper decision. So you got to pay attention to the little stuff. It's the little stuff that really gets you in the end. So pay attention to that. And mindful, and try and get cooperation from other people so you can improve. There's always room for improvement. Thank you.
We had rebuttals. No rebuttal? No, okay.
Next question will go to Dick first. What do you feel will make our children want to live in Williamsburg as adults with their families? Dick?
Children, well, one of my children lives in town about a half a mile from me. The other lives about 150 miles away. They both had different careers, different choices. The biggest thing, what I hear from my daughter is their taxes are too darn high. I listen to some of the people in my neighborhood, and they say the same thing. So I think if you want to get kids to leave, to work here and to be within, say, a 20-mile area here and work, you need to provide a lot of services, not necessarily a lot of services, but good services for them. I think what some of my kids have found out is there is no recreational facilities here for some of the kids to do. I mean, they have to go to Northampton or Florence or something to get some of that stuff. So really, if you want to keep your kids here, you got to provide a good environment for them. You got to provide jobs someplace that pay fairly well. Thank you.
Patrick?
Well, family-friendly is a known set of criteria. It's schools, recreation, parks, commute. And we can do those pretty well. Commute can be a little rough, but we don't have much control over how Northampton handles things, and they're doing some expansion themselves, particularly on Damon Road, also known as the Dust Bowl. But the rest of them, we're not doing badly on. I'd love to see the town lock in some more green space. Fields are part of it, but just a place to not have to buy something and be able to exist, it'd be nice. School, maintain that, obviously, and we're doing well with it. Integrating schools is part of it, but we're not doing badly. Maintain the tax rate, keep the facilities we have currently do a little bit of expansion. You can justify the taxes if you have a good place, because that's secondary. It really is to things like safety and recreation and having a place where your kid can go kickball without having to dodge a bus, you know.
Paul?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that the young people would enjoy the same things that my kids enjoyed. Dick, you're lucky. My girls are far away. But anyway, I just we've improved our schools. We've have a safe community. Taxes are always an issue. We actually have a fair amount of green space, but we could also, I think we could capitalize on some a park or something next to the safety complex. So I don't know. That's a hard question. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Back to Dick first for this question. We're changing topic a little bit. Under the rules and orders for the regulation of traffic on our streets and highways of Williamsburg from 1973, Article 2 specifies authorities and duties of the town police, does not specifically reference enforcing speed limits or mitigating vehicle speed consistent with public safety. How will you commit to directing the police department to place greater emphasis on concentrating on vehicle speed?
That was for me, Gene.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I always thought the police department did a pretty good job of maintaining the speed limits. No matter where you go, it does seem to be a problem. There's plenty of signs put out. I mean, I don't know how you're going to control everybody driving that. I mean, since COVID, I think I don't know if anybody's driven on the turnpike or anybody, but the speed limit isn't 65; it's closer to 80, I think, and I think that gets prevalent everywhere we are. Out where I live, out towards North Farms Road, I know the traffic goes pretty fast there, even if you have signage. I mean, it's difficult to maintain that, but I think if the police get involved and maybe have some awareness meetings with some of the local neighborhoods and stuff, and try and have more of a presence. I know we're limited on a budget and what we can have, but you need a little bit more of a presence to control that if that's your main goal.
Well,
Patrick.
there's a few questions in there. First is the town police are authorized to maintain civil behavior, basically enforces civil codes. They're not directly authorized to do speeds, but they are authorized to effectively some equivalent of maintain the town peace. They do have the authority, and that has been tested, so they shouldn't have any issues with conflict of authority or lacking authority to do so. As far as maintaining the speed limit, there are traffic calming measures. They do include things like those little speed radar signs. There's some ways you can line the pavement or mark the pavement. Having good presence is also just perfect. Put a little policeman in everyone's head. That's the way it's said. And the town is actually paying attention to it. They're using the resources they have available, and to the extent that they feel they are unable, they're well aware that they can ask for further resources, and those do exist.
Paul?
Well, I think that what I would do first is I would think about collecting data so that you could know where your hotspots are over time period. Then I like the idea of installing, or even if they're temporary, traffic calming areas. And it's worth having a chat with the neighborhood, and it's worth having a chat with the police department. So see what you can do. Yeah.
Absolutely, talk to people.
Yeah.
Let's move into climate-related things.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, I am very concerned about climate change. What is your vision for an energy resilient Williamsburg, and how can you provide that while on the select board? And this one starts with Paul. Do I need to read the question again?
Sorry.
I would say I am very interested in energy and sustainable positions. And then I would say that we have a great opportunity and we've taken advantage of it. So the safety complex is an example of having tapping into a state program where we were able to eventually there will be a solar power generation facility on top of at the safety complex. I think that it will cover all the energy costs for all the buildings except for the school. I don't see why the town should actually have to pay for electricity. We can generate it ourselves. And I think that most things that the town does, big projects and things, should be thought of or run through the filter of sustainability. Yeah.
Dick?
I know we have a grant to supply solar panels for the safety complex, so we should maximize that to the most that we can, so we can reduce our energy costs in that respect. We should, any new construction, we should try and make it as efficient as possible, more insulation. And I'm kind of the feeling that you should go more passive, so more insulation, so you don't have to have a lot of extra equipment that you constantly have to maintain. So if we can maximize that and pay attention to try and solve all the little leaks that we have of electricity, try and keep the lights down, try and not run a lot of equipment that we don't need, and try and keep, I noticed, I've been at the Dunphy School and all the computers are on the weekend. I mean, maybe we could shut some of that down and save, I mean, it's a little bit, but every little bit counts. So again, I'm kind of the feeling that you should pay attention to the little stuff, and the big stuff will take care of themselves. So it's a good thing we got solar. I think this town has pretty much 100%, not 100%, but we're one of the bigger users of solar panels in the state, so that's a good thing.
Patrick?
Well, there's actually, the question was about energy resilience. Most people, solar panels, green energy, green infrastructure, wind, all that stuff, it makes sense economically. That's part of reacting and mitigating climate change, but it's not actually part of reliance by itself. Energy reliance is having things like battery backups, generator backups. It's being able to react to the things that will happen during climate change. That massive storm that took out the bridge on South Main Street, well, that was about reliance or reliability. The town does need to prepare for it. Those things are going to happen more and more often. Flash floods, rains, droughts, all of which have a great economic cost for the town. If every bit of grass dies, well, either we live with dust or we manage to replace the grass, increase watering. We do need to address it, and that does mean we're going to have to put together some reserves, both power, water, and infrastructure, all of it.
A related question, what do you think of the idea, and Patrick will go first, of having a committee, something to add a segment on climate change and resiliency to the town, to report to town meeting and to add to town report, some way to get the word out to the public a little better?
Well, that sounds a bit like Town Planning Commission. It's if they needed to pull in extra expertise, that's definitely something. I mean, the town already actually has that. People that are experts in green energy infrastructure, as well as some aspects of resilience, how to deal with things in an environmentally friendly way, how to set up systems that are permanent, that work well. I think we're already prepared to start that process. Yeah, there's not really much more to that. All we need to do is say go.
Paul?
Well, we just had a question about how do we get more people involved in town. I would say that it would be great to have a certain part of the town meeting devoted to climate change related issues. We do have an energy committee already. We do have a planning committee. It might be possible to tap into the expertise of those groups right there. So maybe this is a communications problem, I'm not sure, that in making people aware of what's going on. We also have a Greenway committee it's been working to create a alternative route between Haydenville and, or alternative travel route between Haydenville and Williamsburg. So there's, I think this is a communications issue.
Dick?
As Paul said, we got a technology committee, we have plenty of other committees that deal with safety and stuff. I think it's just a matter of trying to coordinate all those and trying to find out where our best efforts should be concentrated to try and maybe make everything a little bit more efficient in town from an energy standpoint. I know it's kind of the buzzword now to try and save as much energy as you have, and it's important to be efficient.
How do you think, and the first one for this will be Dick, how do you think we can prepare better for keeping with climate change, for dealing with health issues such as extreme heat or extreme cold, especially as it relates to our elders? What does Williamsburg need to do to take care of that?
Well, if you gotta do that, and we know something's coming and it's gonna be a heat wave or it's gonna be a cold snap, I don't know if we have any facilities here in town. I mean, we could open up the school, we could open up the town office buildings to allow for some of those people to come to emergency shelters. Other than that, you gotta make that option available to the people, and they gotta know that there's an option. I mean, and perhaps maybe we need to supply transportation for some of the people to get to a facility if they need that kind of care. It's very difficult. I don't know if we can communicate that to everybody, but I know the town clerk does send out messages on the phone periodically. I mean, I think everybody's on that, so you could get a message out to all the people that this is available in the town hall or in the school or in the library or wherever, that there's cooling or there's heat involved on extreme cold temperatures and heat temperatures.
Patrick?
That's actually. No, sorry, it is working. Took a second. Well, first step is awareness. Most people, they keep an eye on the weather, and that's actually perfect. I don't think too many people have been surprised by a snowstorm. Heat can sneak up on you a little bit because it can come on suddenly. The town can act to warn people. Quick message here, there, Facebook, the town website, that kind of thing, advisories. The next line of, defense, let's call it that, is being good neighbors. Knowing who's vulnerable, keeping an eye on things, and knowing that, letting them know they can come to you if you need help. And that's town-wide. I'd love for the town administration, the Board of Selectmen, all the committees to love for people to think of them as neighbors. After that, absolutely. Shelters, places to go if something does go wrong while it gets fixed. But honestly, the other part of that is making sure people are aware of what is and isn't a medical emergency. My house is 20 degrees, I can't get out the front door. That counts as a medical emergency and should be treated as such. But again, it's all about awareness and communication.
Paul?
I think the key to this question would be to be prepared. And so, again, know who's vulnerable, know who might need your help, and then know what you can do to help them. So it may be that some people need to actually be moved. Most people will want to stay where they are, and if that works out, then you just have someone check on them. Other people that have to be moved, we do have the school set up as an emergency shelter, but that means that they'll have to be cared for, and the resources will have to be brought there. So that's this is actually potentially a big issue. So I think, though, just thinking about it and talking about how we can best apply resources to it for the people that need it.
First answer comes to Paul. The question is that the writer believes that a lot of change is coming to Western Mass from more expensive homes, lots of expansions and renovations. How will you prepare our community for the coming future of more people and more traffic? to be able to preserve our quality of life?
This is gonna be a planning question. So again, I would look at the data, because actually the population of Williamsburg has stayed steady for a very long time. So before I went into this a lot, I would make sure that this is what's really going to happen. Is there really going to be more cars? Are there really going to be more houses? Is that going to lead to more congestion? I think that the key word here is knowing what's really happening in terms of data and being able to plan ahead and think about the situation.
Dick?
Well, as Paul said, the population has been very stable for the last 10 years or 20 years or whatever. I mean, I've been here for 51 and I haven't really seen very many changes. I mean, there's a little bit more traffic where I am, but it's not objectionable or anything. Though I think at this point in time that the planning board has been working on something, so it's kind of working with the planning board and with the residents of town in going to town meeting and voting for what you want to control population. Now, I don't see it increasing. I see the student population decreasing in town for the last 10 years, as well as the decreasing in the Hampshire Regional School in the industry area. So it's not something I think that's a huge problem here in Williamsburg. I mean, unless you're talking about transient traffic coming through on Route 9. So really, I mean, if the planning board can get their job and we can get stuff passed through, which I know they're working on some plans now, I think we can control growth and maintain growth. Thank you.
Patrick?
Well, no town can quite stay the same forever, but that doesn't mean it needs to change radically. Part of what the town does is mitigate that, and it acts as a forum for people to actually express their views. You've got zoning, you have planning, and those are a large part of it. But sometimes things do need to change just a little bit. As the way things are going now, that means that things are going to be, you're going to see changes to the roadway, a lot fewer dirt roads than there used to be. But no, it's something the town can deal with as a whole and should. It's also not really a big issue. Not many people are moving in, and a lot of the younger people are all moving to places, demographically they're moving south, places with lower cost of living and easier access to specific types of jobs, the quick in, quick out kind. It's one of those things you keep an eye on, but I don't foresee this place being unrecognizable in 15, 20 years.
All right. Patrick, you'll go first on this one. What are your thoughts on, well, the background from the writer is that he or she is concerned about specific additions to global warming that we are doing here, because the biggest amount of propane tanks that he's seen in this community has been moving in for a number of years. So the question is, what is the future of something like net zero requirements, all electric homes, building requirements, zoning, that sort of thing, on trying to knock the energy use down?
Well, the town can definitely lead the way. Solar panels, as I said, they make economic sense, and will for the foreseeable future. As far as the propane tanks, a lot of people are replacing wood stoves and oil-fired stoves, which is effectively diesel, with propane, which is a little bit cleaner. It's a step in the right direction. It's not the same thing as an all-electric home, but the Board of Selectmen in the town runs into a small problem where they don't really have, well, they do have the ability, but they don't necessarily have the right to actually mandate that kind of thing, to mandate an all-electric home. It could for new construction, maybe, but that kind of thing breeds a lot of resentment. And luckily, the economics lean towards it anyway. So let the economic follow. Encourage and make sure we have the infrastructure to deal with solar panels. Otherwise, I think we're going to get there sooner rather than later. It's one of those things that's going to happen on its own. We should encourage it, but we don't need to force it.
Paul?
So I think this would be something that the town could actually communicate to people as best as possible. It's true, what's really going to make the difference is going to be economics, and the economics are already there. And the state has the super insulating, it has a good building code that covers a lot of these same issues. So the state, and by virtue, the town is already going in that direction very much. And I think that the town could just make sure that new homeowners or new construction just knows that these are programs that are available.
Dick?
Net zero, I mean, that may be a very difficult thing to obtain. I mean, there's always gonna be something that's gonna affect that. I mean, to try and get to there, I can see building codes, trying to get the most efficient structure you can possibly build. I mean, that's a great idea to do that. But, there has to be, you just can't rely upon wind or solar or hopefully batteries. I mean, you need other alternate energies have to be developed. Synthetic fuels, hydrogen, nuclear has to be considered. I don't think we're ever going to get to net zero if we don't consider all these other options. I mean, to push economics is a big problem, and I know electricity costs now are not exactly the cheapest in the world. So those of you who are as old as me and stuff remember back in the 50s when we were trying to have all new homes after the war with electric heat, and a lot of those people really suffered economically. And what happens when it gets into the economics? It's not the people that have a high income; it's the people that have a lower or middle income that suffer the most.
Along all these lines, what is your take, Dick goes first, on increased intertown coordination, such as working on climate resiliency among several of the hill towns, for instance? Any possibilities for that?
Well, I think that really is in the selectmen's wheelhouse. I mean, we got to talk to all the other towns around here and see what they're doing, what we can do, and kind of coordinate that effort is to try and get the most. If you get a lot of towns working together, we probably can get a better discount on some services. We can get more services done for a less cost. So it's very important that all the towns get together on the regionalization to try and improve overall what everybody is paying economically.
Well, community aggregation is a thing. It exists. I'm not quite familiar whether it can be done that way legally. Sometimes there are legal barriers to it, and they're put in place specifically to stop it. So you'd say the law is the purpose itself, which isn't great, but sometimes it happens that way. As for the rest of it, integrated grids exist. I haven't heard of one in Massachusetts yet. I'm not sure you can do that, but I know what we can do within the town. We can coordinate to make sure we don't have conflicting infrastructure. And that's definitely part of the whole thing, planning and resilience. And it's something we should be doing. And I think to some extent we're getting there as well. We're trying. And God knows if we're not, I'd definitely get that running. Yeah.
Paul?
I agree that this is someplace where the select board could lead. I think it would be really important if you're going to start talking about regionalization of services. It would be really important to make sure that you have talked to your various department heads, especially the ones that you're going to regionalize or thinking about regionalizing or somehow sharing resources. Fortunately, we have talked to them first, and then you're going to have to start, opening conversations with other the towns, and it may not be the same towns for all the different services. Fortunately, we have some examples of regionalization in the ambulance service and in mutual aid and fire protection. But I think it's a good idea and it's worth investigating. Yeah.
Are you concerned about gentrification? Paul?
Am I concerned about gentrification?
No, I'm sorry, this one should be Dick first.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, could
Are you concerned about gentrification?
About what?
Gentrification, elevating the, boy, I've never tried to define this. Bigger, better, fancier homes and at the expense of lower income housing, for instance.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand that. I don't think in this town it's a question, is that much of a question. I know we need housing. We need reasonable housing for some of the lower paid people in town. That's definitely an issue. I don't know how you really solve that completely. I don't think you ever do, but you can try to do that. Like I said, I don't think it's a huge problem here in Williamsburg. I know there is some issues involved in that. And then we just have to work together with developers and whatever to see what we can do. And I know the planning board has kind of limited some of the types of buildings that you can have in town to do some of this stuff.
Patrick?
Well, that's a surprisingly pertinent question. We're just about to redo this, or start a new round of home appraisals. Part of gentrification inevitably is that someone with the means, resources, and time to challenge an appraisal does so, and someone who doesn't. Making sure we actually get people's home appraisals as they should be is a good part of that. As for the rest, zoning and planning again. We do have some large homes, and they're very good neighbors. They really are. But they're paying what they should for the most part. There does tend to be a creep towards exclusivity as home prices go up, and that is part of it. The trick is making sure it doesn't exclude anybody. So we might be making room for some richer neighbors, that's fine, but so long as we don't lose anybody else, well, that's what the town is for. That's what we do.
Paul?
I think if we want to make sure our kids stay here, we're going to need to have some sort of housing stock that's economically available for them. It's going to have to be, maybe we do have some places where there's subsidized or what do you call it, like lower or mid-market housing. I think that I know that this was recently changed, I believe. It's helpful to have being able to build small structures on your property, so you can have what I would call a mother-in-law's apartment, but that's not really, doesn't have to just be for mother-in-laws. Or that you can have home businesses that would be compatible with the neighborhood. So those are ways that might help slow down or just give people options in the course of gentrification.
You won't believe the next question. I swear. Apologies. That was an alarm which does not turn off with a sound.
We appreciate the care you're taking of it.
I think they got it by now.
Still a little bit.
It's okay.
The next question that came in following some of this was what can we do in Williamsburg to get more multifamily or affordable housing? So I don't know if you have more to say on that. If you do, fine, and if not, we'll go on.
I mean, that's what I know so far. So that's good. Yeah.
Patrick?
Well, that's a conscious decision the town has to make. It's a zoning or a zoning variance issue. We have rural residential, rural agriculture, and township zoning, basically. And there is room for it if we wanted to have smaller lots, smaller homes. I think what is our minimum? 1.5 acres? We'd have to get a variance on that one. If the town decided to do it, we could. It's absolutely something we should discuss as well, but it's, I'm not sure how popular it's gonna be, but we could do it. It's available.
Dick?
I think if you're talking about multi-dwellings, I'm kind of leaning towards the fact that I certainly don't want to see a 30-unit building going up in town. To me, it'd be something that would take up a lot of land, would not be in the best interest of this town, and would not reflect the character of this town. I think if you want to get multi-units, they should be fairly small, maybe 1 or 2 bedroom type of units, and only like 2 or 3 attached and spread apart, so you don't crowd a lot of people in together. I mean, this town has a lot of acreage, and there's not a lot of stuff that's on top of each other, so we need to kind of spread everything out and make only maybe 4 plexes or 3 plexes or something like that, and tiny. I've been reading a lot about tiny structures and tiny buildings. I mean, I suppose there's an alternate to that where you get a 300 or 400 square foot building for a 1 or 2 unit thing that would probably work well in some areas of this town.
There was an economic development study conducted by UMass last year, and one of the things they recommended was that we consider a local chamber of commerce to work on helping businesses become more cohesive and bolster our image and provide more local employment. What would be your thinking on that? Dick?
Well, I'm all for small businesses. I mean, we need more of them in this town. I mean, we don't have that many of them. And if we could develop a committee or a chamber of commerce that they encourage that, I would be 100% for that.
Patrick?
Well, I'm philosophically right alongside the idea of people aggregating their interests. Chamber of Commerce generally tend to do that. They act as a means of advertisement and as a means of making sure that people understand what the businesses need to thrive. And if they wanted to, they could, sure. Not opposed to it. I don't see how the Board of Selectmen would really lead on that, rather than sort of to say, have you considered and you have my blessing, of which they'd have both. But the businesses do make up a lot of the tax base here. They don't just provide employment, they also provide property and personal taxes. So it does actually matter, and it is something we should be doing.
Paul?
I agree that if it would certainly be worth looking into having some organization that promotes the town and its businesses and its characteristics and attributes. I think the select board does have a lot to say about it, if especially if it goes into the budget or something like that. So you'd have to decide whether this would be something worth putting into the budget and spending some money on.
This is a question for, no, all 3 of you. Dick and Paul, of course, as members of the Finance Committee, voted against a full-time fire department. Would you mind explaining your reasons?
You know, at the point when we were voting on this last spring, or we didn't feel that we were quite ready there. I mean, there was a need to have services obviously rendered, but I didn't think we're still at that point where a full-time fire department was warranted. Maybe, I know the administrative costs were going up, and the number of calls are going up, but to try and service that with a full-time fire chief at that time wasn't the most important thing. It was more, I think, to actually provide services, not necessarily from the fire chief. You know, the fire chief at that time was considering doing all the calls, and from my point of view, that wasn't the important part of the fire chief. We should have a person that was available to make the calls.
Sort of related to that, I think the Finance Committee wanted to explore other options of than just hiring a full-time fire chief. So do you need a part-time firefighter, or there was just a number of questions, and that's why I think the majority of the Finance Committee wanted to just hear more and understand it better.
No, I was actually present for that meeting. The issue isn't necessarily also the total, so obviously I didn't vote on this one, but the question also wasn't just the amount of work that was performed, but when and what type. If most of the work is building inspectors, people get a little bit vexed if you show up at 2 a.m. You don't necessarily need a full-time fire inspector for that. You need someone who's able to set appointments and meet the demand, even if it's 2 people working part-time.
It's also about the economics. You want to provide a good employment and good opportunity for somebody. You don't need to give someone 38 hours, that kind of nonsense. But at the same time, if it's makes more economic sense and we're already relying on our neighbors in a cooperative fashion, our neighboring towns, do we really need a full-time employee? There were some questions that did need to be answered that maybe weren't. It needed further investigation before that decision was made. And that's the problem. The information wasn't there to make the decision to make a permanent employee.
Thank you. We have a couple more specific ones. Wondering if the select board meetings could be held in the evening so more citizens can attend. Paul?
Well, since I still work full-time, if I'm elected, yeah, they have to be held somewhere off, not working hours, yeah.
Dick?
Well, I'm retired. I could do any time during the day, but I'm kind of with Paul. I think the meetings should be at night so more people who actually work during the day can actually get to a meeting and put their input in. I mean, that's very important. I mean, if we just have them at 9 o'clock on every Thursday or whatever it is, I mean, that doesn't get a lot of people there. So let's open it up, do it at night so people can actually come and be a part of this town.
Yep, I'm definitely in favor of it. I've never quite grasped the ability to be a morning person. I can be there in body, but not in spirit.
So it makes sense just even for selfish reasons, but I'd love to see more people actually show up. Mostly it's just the secretary and the town administrator and the selectman, and that's it. I'd also like to change the venue to something a little less small than just the office space. Be prepared for it. Definitely in the evening.
Well, one of the comments on that question was to try and get citizen input before things happen in a little bit. More citizen input.
I think that was mine, isn't it?
Along those lines, is there anything more that you'd like to say on trying to get new people in town, young people in town, just brainstorming other things to get people more involved, and to avoid the mentality that some of us here sometimes like, you're not from here because you've only been here 30 years as opposed to 50 years. But anything more on citizen involvement that you'd like to speak to? Paul?
I actually haven't really I've run into the idea that maybe, having lived here since 2005, I'm not from around here, but I haven't run into the idea of you can't serve on boards or anything without being around. No one's ever refused my time. I don't know, they just never have. I don't really have any great ideas. I know that this to recruit more people in. I think word of mouth works really well. Having said that, I've been promoting, there's going to be an opening on the finance committee, and I, regardless of the election results, there's an opening, and so I know that there's going to be someone, we're going to need someone. So I've been talking it up, and I haven't found anybody yet. But so I try word of mouth. I try to make it so that people know about government functions and things, and I want them to, and how they can participate.
Okay. Sorry, I lost track of who's next. Is it Patrick?
I think so.
Well, there are a couple of ways. So this ends up being sort of a political science, or not political science, campaign thing. If you want people's involvement, there are two easy ways to do it. The first is to let people complain. But that actually ends up as being a hook to bring people in. You know what? I told him he sucks, and he wasn't mad about it. I think I will become more involved. Second way is to be visual or visible. If decisions are obvious and you're obviously wrong, someone will call you on it, and they will. If we improve the visibility of what the town administration does and what the Board of Selectmen does, at the same time as we make it easier to be contacted, people will step up for that. As for the rest of it, it's about time. A lot of people are very busy now. That's part of the reason why a lot of people involved are retired, and you're going to see that in the town. It's what happens. But it doesn't mean that people can't be involved, or at least voice their opinions or offer their expertise. That should be where we're after for the first step.
Dick?
I think for people to be involved, I mean, I've been on a bunch of committees. I mean, I'm on the trust fund, I'm on the finance committee, and you have the meetings, and I know on the trust fund, there's 3 of us that meet every Tuesday, and I think we probably had 1 other person show up to that meeting in the whole year. I mean, it's a huge problem. And even on the finance committee, we have very few people that would show up that got questions. I think we gotta try and make the meetings as accessible as possible. And to do that, maybe we need the town clerk to put out that phone call every time there's a meeting that night to alert people. I think a lot of people just don't know that the meetings are going on. I know I've talked to some people in my neighborhood and they have no idea that every Tuesday this meeting or every once a month this meeting happens. I think we just don't have enough information out there. And if we utilize maybe the town clerk to send out a robocall, you know, the day of the meeting or the 2 days before the meeting, just to let people aware, to try and get people interested to be on a committee is difficult. I know the school committee had trouble even getting people at the caucus. Okay.
Thank you, Dick.
We're gonna take one more specific question and then I'll ask for the closing comments. The specific question has to do with enforcement of regulations in town. There are questions here about speeding, which you've already talked to. This one is on zoning and signs. We have a sign ordinance, and the individual believes that once a business is gone for 6 months, that sign should be down. That would be an enforcement question, which I believe comes out of Northampton. Can you speak to how our enforcement is going on things like signage? Paul?
I don't know much about this. So, I mean, enforcement is okay. If there's a rule and that shouldn't be too much, that there's good logic for that. I can say that for other things, maybe not just signs, enforcement's going to depend on other people notifying who needs to be notified, because it's not. There isn't a large government watching over everybody. So you just can't, you're going to depend on other people. Not that everybody should be constantly watching over their shoulders at their neighbors, but it's, that's just the way it's going to be. So, yeah.
Patrick?
Part of this is planning. There are businesses that have signs that haven't been there in 10 years, but there are also signs for businesses that haven't been there that are in fact now landmarks. Well, generally the range should fall on the good and the bad alike. Ordinances should be enforced, and if it's a bad ordinance, then the ordinance needs to be dealt with, but the enforcement needs to be equal. That's part of turning law into justice. But looking forward to it, I think there's some small number of exceptions that do need to be made. But that's also the kind of thing you should be able to talk to somebody about. Call in the town hall and point it out. And if that doesn't get any traction, well, call again and talk to the Board of Selectmen. It's the kind of thing that you need to talk to somebody about.
Dick?
Enforcement. So my take on that whole thing is that at some point you have so many rules, so many regulations that not everybody knows what they are. So a lot of stuff gets swept under or gets missed because there's nobody that knows everything. So you have to kind of limit what some of the rules are that you really want to enforce, and then you got to make sure that the agency or the planning committee or whoever, zoning committee, whoever's involved with that, pays attention to those rules and enforces them. Because otherwise, if you have too many rules, nobody knows what they are, especially the citizens. They have no idea. I mean, there's thousands, talk about something like the IRS or something. I mean, nobody knows what all that's involved. And it's the same thing here, but obviously on a smaller scale. So I think you need fewer rules, but more specific rules. And the committees that are involved with those rules, somebody has to be designated that they're going to watch out for any changes to those rules or any violations of those rules.
All right, thank you. We drew straws. They drew straws for closing remarks. Paul is going to go first.
Oh, yeah? Oh, okay.
We drew the other 2 straws. We didn't need to draw the first straw.
Okay, so First of all, thank you for sitting on these very hard chairs for over an hour, listening to us. I appreciate it. Appreciate you being here. I think that I'll just end by saying that being on the select board, like I mentioned, it's going to be a matter of thinking creatively, working and being practical about what comes before you. And I am focused on data. I think data can be a really important aspect of any kind of decision that comes out of the select board. I also am personally and professionally, I have a strong commitment to sustainable future, and I'll bring that commitment to town. But I guess I'll just end and just say that as a select board member, you would find me to be thoughtful and practical and committed, and I would be honored to earn your vote to serve on the select board. So, thank you.
Dick, the second?
I have found that to be effective, you must not only pay attention to the larger situation, but also to the little issues. For those that would most often make or break the budget. During my career in construction, working on many projects, buildings, treatment plants, colleges, hospitals, commercial structures and buildings, I successfully coordinated the interest of owners, labor unions, subcontractors, and material suppliers to complete projects on time and under budget. In a similar manner, if I'm a member of the select board, I will manage the town costs to stay within the town-approved budget. Taxes are on everybody's mind and also unavoidable. As all other candidates, I am also concerned about the inflationary pressure applied in today's world. I believe that I have the budget and money management skills to get the most out of our dollars, keeping in mind that the priority in Williamsburg should always be to fund what is absolutely needed for the operation of the town. So if you agree and align with kind of all my feelings and qualifications and aspirations for the town of Williamsburg, I would appreciate your vote as selectman on November 4th. Thank you.
Patrick?
Well, I have a background in politics, statistics analysis, town planning. That was my specialization. It was that and public policy, how it impacts things like health insurance and stuff like that. I like people. I like talking to them. I can't hold grudges. I've tried. I'm not good at it. I'm easy to talk to, I think. Honestly, a lot of people, I mean, you two have a lot of experience with business, and I get that, and that's a good place to come from. But this isn't just business. It's not just data. It's not just finance. It's politics. It's rough. It's coarse. It's inexact. And most of it's about coordinating people. Get them together, get them to talk to you and figure out what needs to be done. It's not reading the charts, it's steering the ship. And you have to rely on someone else to tell you, the fathom and how deep the water is and where the reefs are. It's not your job. It's to listen and then to tell. But to the extent that it is those things, that it's looking at the data, I'm prepared to do so. I have the skill set and I'm ready for it. I can't promise you the taxes are going to go down, but I'm going to tell you that I'll promise to try to keep them from going up. And I can't tell you the town's going to turn out exactly the way you'd want, but at least I'll hear what you want, and I'll have an idea, and you'll have a say in it. Vote for me because I'll be available and I'll listen.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. The crew of Indivisible Williamsburg was delighted that so many of you came and stayed. We very much appreciate your participation. Love seeing you. Have a good day.
Can I ask you, what is Indivisible Williamsburg?
Oh, yeah.
It is a loosely organized group that began under a previous presidential administration called Resist. It morphed as the need for progressive, nonpartisan action became apparent for things like transparency in state government, which is one of the big things. More action on climate resiliency and so forth. So it's a loose organization, but there is an overall state organization that provides a lot of resources and a lot of training. And then locally, we are a group of about 30, only about a dozen or so that, you know, work more often. And we meet monthly most of the time, and we take on a project of some sort that tries to either inform or educate or make life better in our community. Feel free to get involved. You can see me. All right, thanks all.